Good morning and welcome to the H2G podcast presents The Wire.
What is up, everybody? You are listening to The Wire. We are excited because there was some crazy football games. Just a quick shout out to the Baltimore Steelers game. That was intense. I know Justin was very not concentrated when we were about to start our podcast because, man, that fourth quarter, it was, I think the 2 minutes in is what Justin and I were sitting here like scratching our heads like, oh, you know what? Like, we may not be able to start the podcast for H2G on time, but that's not a bad thing because, oh man, what a game. But we'll get to that game later. We're going to start off again with the NBA as we have been traditionally recently. Obviously, for the league, we're still going to have to figure out what's going on. Are they going to start in Christmas or are they going to start later? That'll be conversation for another day. But let's just start off with what I think was kind of interesting. I think the first thing I'd like to talk about, boys, is let's go with the 76ers. We got a lot going on there, actually. We got to unpack. So Elton Brand, which a lot of the Philadelphia fans were not thrilled with, is used to be a Sixers guy himself, used to play. Elton Brand is being rehired for 5 years as a general manager. Now, a lot of people were memeing and hating on Elton Brand because a lot of his decision making with the 76ers. In a lot of cases, like for instance, Jimmy Butler not trying to reacquire him. Now, Jimmy didn't want to stay. Let me clarify that. And he even said that vocally. But a lot of the fans in Philadelphia were not happy that they just basically traded to get Jimmy, wanted Jimmy there, and then Jimmy stayed for 1 year and kind of bounced. And then Tobias Harris is like their backup plan. So in a lot of ways, a lot of people were surprised by that. But I'm also really excited because Daryl Morey, who I think is incredible, is now going to be the president of the 76ers organization. Now, he was the GM of the Houston Rockets. What I thought was incredible is we had this tenure of the Warriors with Kevin Durant dominating. And a lot of people just don't necessarily know or don't remember, but every single year, actually the Rockets were beating them in the playoffs. And what would happen is either an injury or something to that effect, or they were up and they would blow the leads. So Daryl Morey, he actually kind of did a little tell-all, although he didn't do it. It was leaked by an anonymous person. But he basically said, Rockets under cheap ass. You know, let's keep it real. Wouldn't pay over the luxury tax once, not a single time. And you're competing with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were, I think, 30 million over the luxury tax, and the Warriors, who were like 12 million over. And remember, the league has much more hard cap than the NFL. So these were big numbers. And when Daryl Morey's handcuffed, 2 hands behind his back, and was still almost winning, except for the fact James Harden was choking, he's incredible. I think he's a great guy. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with Philadelphia. But there's one problem, boys, in Philadelphia. And that is one Glenn Rivers. I will not call him Doc Rivers. There's only one Doc in Philadelphia, and it is not Glenn Rivers. Very underwhelming coach. They picked him up. So you got an entire new structure, new coach, new president, re-signing a general manager. What do you guys think? Let's just go with Glenn Rivers. Let's go with the Doc. Let's go with the coach. I think that's the easiest conversation to have. Marv, what do you think about Doc? Do you think he can help Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons kind of work their magic? Because a lot of people are trying to say they need to trade one of them.
No, I don't think that it's. I don't think it's a good fit for Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons to have Doc as a coach. I think you have to trade one of those pieces because what we've seen over the last few years, Joel Embiid hasn't been utilized properly in that system. He's a high-level, low-post scorer. That is what Joel Embiid is. He can't come up the ball. He can't come up the court and shoot the three from the perimeter. So you need a coach that will put him inside. And Ben Simmons, to his credit, has developed any kind of perimeter shooting in the years that he's been with Philly. So you're going to have to move one of those pieces. And I think Doc coming into that system, it improves it, but it doesn't put them over the top. So I think that if they can trade for a James Harden, that would put the Sixers in a position where they can contend because you have a scorer on the outside, you have perimeter scoring, and you have a guy on the inside like Joel Embiid that can score in the post. And then you can complement those two with complementary players around them, which is going to be the only way how I can see them contending with the Nets, Boston, and even the Heat. Because let's face facts, I mean, the Sixers culture has been tumultuous for the last 5 years, for the last decade. They've just underachieved. And I think that removing Brett Brown was a great decision. Now they have Doc, and they can count on a culture change, because that's really what they need. Because when you look at the landscape of the East, they're going to have their hands full contending with the Nets, the Celtics, and those teams that just named off.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't find it complimentary at all. I'm glad we're on the same page. For the other boys, here's the best way to describe Ben Simmons. He's LeBron James if LeBron James was a little less athletic and can't shoot a three-pointer. Ben Simmons takes 0.1 three-pointers per game. Every 10 games, he shoots one three-pointer. His percent is 28% shooting at the three-point line. He is of no consequential threat at the line. He has to penetrate and drive. And don't get me wrong, he can dunk. I don't mean it disrespectfully. I'm not trying to say that this guy's a scrub. Ben Simmons is an incredible talent, but Ben and Joel, it literally is the worst possible pick and roll setup you have. Because what you have is a guy who's going to get a pick from Joel, and he's going to have to drive. He can't kind of do a step back and pull a three to get Joel open, right? Because what's going to happen is they go for pick and roll, and both the guys are just going to back up and be like, go ahead, Ben. Don't shoot the ball because you're not going to. And then Joel, the 7'3" guy, okay, please shoot the ball because if you miss, we're getting the rebound. So it's an awkward situation in my opinion. And I wanted it to work. I really love Joel Embiid. I think if he wasn't so injury prone and he took the game more seriously, he'd be the best player in the league, literally. I think even over Anthony Davis. To me, Anthony Davis, best player in the league, even over LeBron. But I think Joel Embiid could be that. When I see Joel Embiid, what I see is quick footwork, very Shaquille O'Neal-ish. He's just incredibly, just so much bigger. I mean, he's 4.5 inches taller than Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis made everyone look like children. Joel Embiid is incredible, but he doesn't have what he needs, and I think what Marvin kind of alluded to, in my opinion as well, is he doesn't have that like Kobe. He doesn't have that guy that's just going to get hot, or a Ray Allen even for that matter. Just somebody who's going to keep the defense honest so they can't just stack the paint. And it's just, you can't just have a deep center who's going to sit in the paint, clog it up, because then that's just going to inhibit Ben, because Ben wants to drive. So what you want is that paint free so Ben can go in and do his work. So I'm with you, Marv. I think it does need to blow up. I think the fans of Philadelphia are correct. Yeah, it's weird. They have so many new organizational structures that I like. I'm not a huge fan of Glenn, honestly, but don't get me wrong. New scene, as Marv kind of suggested, maybe it'll help. I love Daryl Morey as president of basketball operations, but guess what? He doesn't dribble the ball. Right? I mean, you got James Harden, which I think is a super underrated player. People always tend to forget his greatness. I mean, he averaged 35.6 points per game in a league where basically he's just playing iso ball. You know, the only time I've ever seen this is basically when Mike was playing in the late 80s. It's the only thing reminiscent, in my opinion. And we can talk about, his histrionics and like making fouls and but the bottom line is the game is set up that way, and James is playing within the rules and the confines of the game. So if anything, the game needs to change, not James. But Tony is smirking, and I'm very curious. Tony, clearly I feel like you got something to say, brother. Let me hear it.
Well, it's just funny because I mean we've gone all over the place with your commentary and everything that you needed to say there, which was good. I like it. There was a lot of information. But back to the Doc Rivers thing, real quick. So Doc was a former NBA player. He coached the Orlando Magic for the first couple of years. He actually won Coach of the Year with Orlando Magic. Then he went to the Boston Celtics. And with the Boston Celtics, great organization, already had its main three, with all the players that they had. They ended up winning a championship. And then he went to the LA Clippers. And he had, so much talent there that, they should have won with the talent that they've had. That's come and gone. See you later. Everything that's happened with the Clippers, he should have made something happen there like he made happen with the Celtics. It didn't happen that way. Now he finds himself with the 76ers. And, you said Ben Simmons is a watered down version of LeBron James, not as athletic. Well, guess what? That's like 60% of the NBA are watered down versions of LeBron James, and the other 40%, we don't even know their names. They're just coming off the bench. So, I just think that's funny. I will agree with both of you about Embiid. And actually, Morey said, speaking about the general manager, said that this is Embiid's team. That was the first thing he said. Okay. So, that's nice to know. But you got to have Embiid and you got to have Simmons and you got to have the other pieces come together. And I think they'll figure it out. But going back to my second topic that I wanted to state about Embiid, you both hit the nail on the head. Embiid reminds me of Shaquille O'Neal because Shaquille O'Neal could have been the greatest player of all times if he had the work ethic.
I agree with that.
He doesn't have the work ethic, and he didn't have it. And so that's why you get what you get. 3-time champion, 4-time champion, 3 MVPs, finals MVPs. I'm not saying anything against them, but he's even said it. Kobe's even said it. If he would have had a different mindset, a different work ethic, it'd be a different story. Embiid is in that same boat. I believe he's so talented, and he could be more if he just put in the work. You got to put in the work to get the results. And that's why LeBron James is just so dominant. He's built dominant, but he plays dominant because he's got that work ethic and mindset. Same with Tom Brady. Everybody's like, Tom Brady. Everybody talks about Tom Brady. Do you know what Tom Brady physically puts himself through, mentally puts himself through, and emotionally put himself through every offseason and season? It is outrageous. You have to have that kind of mindset in order to be a killer, in order to get things done. And that's why Tom Brady got it done. That's why LeBron James is getting it done. Embiid, all you got to do is find out what that juice is, juice up your mind, get that work ethic, and it'd be a completely different story. You have the capability of writing your story. You just have to put in the work.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tony. I think he cares more about tweets, though. Justin, you gonna say something, brother?
Yeah, Tony, you pointed that. I'm glad you called Richie out on one of those. He also threw in that little jab about Anthony Davis being number 1 in the league. I guess we'll get to that a little bit later. We're just going to run over that one. What comes to mind with this whole situation is a movie and a story of a baseball story about Billy Beane. The movie's called Moneyball. It takes, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. But the moral of the whole story is it takes the perfect scientific experiment to get a team that's going to flow for seasons on end. Nobody's wanting just one win. Nobody's wanting just one good season. It's a perfect matchup, and it doesn't always mean having. That's the takeaway from Moneyball. It doesn't always mean having the heavy hitters, having the LeBron James. Sometimes it means having a solid 75% across the board. So I think the 76ers will get there, but that's just what comes to mind with this situation for me is Moneyball and Billy Beane and that whole story.
Okay, yeah. I really want it. I want them to succeed. I love watching traditional centers, like true centers, and that's what I see in Joel Embiid. And actually, that's why I've kind of always been an Anthony Davis hater. Is he's a power forward who should play center, but he doesn't want to take the beating of playing a center. And he said that, like, he doesn't want to play center. Honestly, that's disappointing to me. It's disappointing because look what he did in the playoffs when he was center. Like, he dominated. And I hate seeing that. So, by de facto default, Joel Embiid is the best center in the league when he could be the best player in the league. And actually, we're going to get right into that real quick. We got a 2K rating system that came out. I don't agree. I'm going to go over the top 10 and I'll let you guys comment on it. We have number 1, LeBron James. 98 overall. Show that man respect. MVP. Giannis is number 2 at 97. Kawhi Leonard, 96. Third. James Harden is also 4th at 96. Kevin Durant, 95. Anthony Davis, 95. Dame Lillard, 95. Steph Curry, 95. Luka Doncic, 94. And Jimmy Buckets at number 10, 93. I'm going to let the boys handle this, and I'll just kind of process afterwards. So anyone who wants to go for it.
I mean, it's very interesting, you know, to see some of the names that, because I got the link that you sent. It's I mean, Dame time, 95 though. You know, I don't know. Jimmy Butler, 93. Yeah, I mean, he did do a little something, but just because you did a little something doesn't mean that you should just be awarded a 93. I mean, where's our boy at, you know, that shoots the threes? Steph. Okay, Steph's at 895. Okay, I mean,
Dame and him have the same rating.
Okay,
and
so
that grown man has 2 MVPs and is a 3-time champion, and he has the same rating as Dame Lillard, who's won nothing.
I just don't see it. I just don't see some of these. I mean, Kevin Durant, yeah, he was injured last season, so you got to kind of put him, you know, probably where he was the year before that, which he probably dropped down a couple points. He was probably, a 97 or something last year.
He was a 97 the year before, so I think this is the right number for him.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with that. James Harden, that's a bad mamma jamma. I can see 96. Kawhi, I think Kawhi is probably more of a 95. I mean, think about it. Think about this. Dame Lillard, Luka, and Jimmy Butler are probably the 3 that I'd be like, we got to change up these overall. I mean, just me personally. I mean, who am I? It's just my personal opinion. You know, Klay Thompson definitely should be a little bit higher than an 89. Chris Paul, he's right where he's at. He probably should actually even be a little bit lower than that. I'm not a Chris Paul hater. I'm just being honest. Paul George should definitely be a 90. You know, but some of these, I don't agree with them. I really don't agree with some of these. LeBron James is obviously going to be the number 1 player in the NBA, and he has the highest rating. I give him that. They were a little soft on him with the 3-point overall with the 78. I think LeBron James shoots threes a little bit better than that, but other than that, I really don't have anything to say, unless someone else has something to bring to the table to kind of make me question or retort. But other than that, I just don't see it. I really don't.
I mean, for me, what I'll say is this. I am shocked Dame and Steph have the same rating. Again, I think Dame is a baller. I actually think Dame is more of a baller than Steph. And I know that's a hot take. But that's because Dame does not have anyone around his ass, and he still puts it up. And man, you want to talk about like a clutch shot maker? I think that's Dame Lillard. But having said that, and having the respect I have for him, I think when you look at like resumes, I just don't think it's fair to have that Dame and Steph have the same rating. Like, I love Dame. I personally think Dame is a better point guard than Steph Curry. I know that's another hot take. I really do feel that way. Dame is a boss. But you got to do something to, same thing with Luka Doncic. Another thing you meant. Luka is the future. I think in 3 years, Luka's going to be a 97. I think Luka is the future. But I am surprised he is a 94 right now. That boy been in the league 2 years and he got a 94. He's the 9th best player already. You know, like, there's a movie, ladies and gentlemen, that I loved. It's called The Great White Hype. Years ago, boxing movie. And as much as I love Luka and he is not hype, He is worth it. I do feel like they're wanting to have that like Larry Bird white guy in the top 10 by giving him a 94. I think Luka, don't get me wrong, this year is going to ball and he'll deserve that top 10. But I don't see kind of what Tony referred to. I don't see how you put Luka above some of these players. I don't see how Luka at a 94 is above a guy like Joel Embiid, who, yes, he was hurt. Yes, he's not playing at the level he's playing. But Joel Embiid is the best center in the league. And you telling me Luka don't? They 5 point guards who have a higher score than the best center in the league. Like, now, when I used to play video games, and maybe I'm an old man and I don't play them no more, so I don't understand. But when I used to play video games, each position would have like a best player, and that player was usually close to that 99. That's usually how that worked. So Joel Embiid at 91 is disgraceful. Jimmy Butler getting a 93 is disgraceful. Jason Tatum only being a 90 is disgraceful. Nikola Jokic only being a 90 is disgraceful. That man showed Anthony Davis up, quite frankly, a lot of the time. So I am shocked at some of these. Kawhi Leonard does not deserve a 96. That's blasphemy. If you're going to put Paul George at an 88, how dare you put Kawhi Leonard at a 96? Like, PG should be a 90. Leonard, after his pitiful performance, should go down to a 94. I think he should be at Luka's rating, 94. He choked harder than I've ever. For a man who was willing to put a crown on his necklace before the season started, at his little Converse thing saying he's the king of LA, and to score, Marvin, help me out here. How much he scored in the fourth quarter? I think it was 0 point, 2 points, 0 points, something like that. In game 7?
4 points.
4 points, thank you. 4 points.
And this is the reigning finals MVP.
The former reigning finals MVP. At that point was the reigning finals MVP.
Yeah, at that point.
He a 96. He the third best player in the league after choking that hard. Come on, 2K. Come on. Be better. Be better.
Well, Richie, I gotta tell you, this list is inaccurate, and I have to disagree with a couple of takes you and Tony took on this. Joel Embiid does not deserve to be a 91, and it's just what Tony said earlier. He doesn't take the game seriously enough. We've all seen it from his level of play. Rich, we know what he's capable of being. We all know that. We all know that he's capable of putting up Shaq-like numbers. We've seen it, but he doesn't take care of his body, and that's another story for a different day. But Luka Doncic definitely deserves to be a 94, and I think that's rightfully so, a rightful rating. If you see the way he performed in the playoffs this postseason, he is the clear-cut de facto leader of that team. And you saw, I mean, he is the future of the league. His future is very bright. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Kawhi Leonard does not deserve to be a 96. I think we all can agree on that. Based off his playoff performance, he definitely needs to drop down to at least a 93. Paul George, I disagree with him being an 88, y'all. That's not 88. Okay, this man dubbed himself Playoff P. What have we seen from the last, last 4 postseasons from Paul George? This man hit the side of the backboard in a game 7, and this man's an 88. He's ranked over Jamal Murray. Are they kidding me? Jamal Murray is an 87. How disrespectful is 2K? And this man... Very laughable that Paul George is ranked ahead of Jamal Murray. Shame on 2K. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Russell Westbrook at 88. Okay, I mean, this is right. I think Russ should drop at least 3 more points because he lacks a jump shot, and we see in that series against the Lakers, he just disappeared. He's become more mouth over the last few years than if anything, and so I really think that he doesn't deserve that rating, being 88. Let's see what else we got, y'all. Okay, Anthony Davis in 95. I agree. I agree with that rating, Richie. Tony, Justin, I agree with that. I mean, this dude is the best power forward in the game with point guard skills. I mean, clear-cut MVP candidate for next year. James Harden. James Harden. Come on, y'all. Y'all help me out. James Harden does not deserve that rating at 96. Clearly have seen him come up short time and time again in the postseason, choking. You can't blame Russell Westbrook, can't blame Daryl Morey, can't blame Mike D'Antoni. All the blame is on James Harden. James Harden is becoming more and more one-dimensional every single year. Dribble, 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 step back, shoot. Dribble, 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 step back, pass. Dribble, 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 drive and kick, pass. It's the same old, same old. And Kobe even said it. That style does not win championships. So I agree with everyone else on this panel, hopefully, that he doesn't deserve that rating of a 96. Kevin Durant, okay. Kevin Durant, it could be arguably said that he would be the best player in the NBA right now, say he never got hurt. But we don't know what he's going to do next year. We have to wait and see. So this rating at 95, he can keep it. Out of respect for KD, keep it. But we have to see. If he's not the same from this Achilles injury, then he's going to drop.
Which nobody ever has.
Which no one's ever recovered
including Kobe Bryant.
Yeah. So, time will only tell. Kyrie Irving, y'all, at 90. I mean, Richie, you think he's deserving of that?
Hell no, he ain't deserving a 90. And I'm a big Kyrie fan. I have Kyrie shoes, whole 9 yards. I love Kyrie, but he played like dog shit last year and the year before. This boy is not a leader. He's complained constantly that he wanted to have opportunities to grow, and him and Kevin are going to drive that team into the ground. Now, don't get me wrong. They'll still win like 45 to 50 wins anyway. Like, it'll happen. Well, actually, it depends on how many games they get to play. Yeah. But the point is they'll be like a 65% win team, but
you're just worried about that kind of system.
Kyrie should get an 85, like you were saying about Russell Westbrook. Kyrie deserves the same number, 85. He does not deserve.
I agree with
That's
that.
Insane.
And I think that the best center in the game is another talk for another day. But when I'm looking at Nikola Jokic being
the Joker.
90, the Joker. That's his new name now. Him being at 90, that doesn't do him a justice. Nikola Jokic should be a 94. Because to me, Richie, he's the best center in the game. The Joker is the best center in the game. I'm going to say that one more time, y'all. Nikola Jokic, the Joker, is the best center in the game. Go back and look and see what he did this postseason. Go back and see what he did to the Clippers. Because the Clippers, they threw everything in the kitchen sink at Nikola Jokic, and they couldn't stop him. They threw Paul George at him, nothing. Kawhi Leonard, nothing. Montrezl Harrell, nothing. Sweet Lemon Pepper Lou, nothing. They couldn't do nothing with Jokic. He's the best center in the game. But I'll wrap it up. 2K doesn't really seem to get it right every year. They really seem to be a little off sometimes and give guys ratings that they really don't, that clearly have to earn, like Jimmy Butler being in a 93. Come on, y'all. As much as we respect Jimmy Butler on this show, he's not deserving of a 93. He's all heart. He's all heart, but a 93? That's you just over Jason Tatum. I'm done. Somebody take it. Justin, take it away.
I'll be real short and sweet again because you guys have covered this list, 3 times over. In my opinion, 99 should represent like GOAT, and in my opinion, and I've always viewed it this way, and I thought that they've underdone it both on 2K and on Madden. NCAA football I used to play a lot. I've always felt like 99 is as good as this rating is going to get, right? So I'd love to see LeBron at a 98, and then let's work our way down and be realistic from there and make 99 something that has to be achievable. I think LeBron, the only thing I'll say is I think LeBron is the only one consistently putting up those huge freaking numbers still. So I see that rating there, but I think 99 should be, almost impossible because it's a video game. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's based on stats and things like that, but let's lower that top bar down a little bit because I don't even know that how can we be sure that LeBron hasn't had his miracle season yet? Maybe that's still coming for him. That's happened. So I don't know. I think overall 99 is too achievable, but otherwise my list is going to sound similar to what you've already heard. So
Justin, I just know I'm not getting Paul George in 2K if I'm playing. If I go cut the game on right now, all I know, y'all, is that I'm not playing with Paul George. Know that.
All right. I feel like that's going to do it. Although, Marv, good point about Jokic. We'll have to talk about that some other time. Tony's going to hit us up with some NFL, but stay tuned, folks. You're listening to...
Are you tired of the mundane one subject, one point of view podcast? Have you been searching for a show that combines comedy, games, current events, and hot new up-and-coming artists? Well, look no further. The H2G podcast has everything you need to start your week out right. So what are you waiting for? Stream previous seasons now at h2gpodcast.com. The H2G Podcast, Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Available at all social media platforms near you.
All right, welcome back, y'all, to The Wire. We're going to do a little NFL talk. So I'm going to give you a little rundown real quick of this past weekend's games. It's going to be real fast. The Falcons down the Panthers 25-17. The Vikings took care of the Packers 28-22. The Titans lose to the Bengals 31-20. The Chiefs rocked the house against the Jets 35-9. The Colts whooped on the Lions 41-21. The Steelers handled their business and took care of it, even though the Ravens were making a game out of it, and they should have won that game 28-24 for the Steelers. The Dolphins took care of the Rams 28-17. What happened to the Rams? Come on, man. The Bills 24, the Patriots 21. Cam Newton fumbles within the last minute of the game for the Bills to secure that win. The Browns lose to the Raiders 6-16. The Broncos took care of the Chargers by 1 point, 31-30. The Saints took care of the Bears 26-23. In overtime, the 49ers lose to the Seattle Seahawks 37-27. The Eagles, this damn division, I swear to God, this division. The Eagles took care of the Cowboys 23-9. And you still have the Buccaneers-Giants game going on, but as of right now, the Giants are in the lead 14-6. But we'll make a prediction on who we think will come out of that game. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play defer or take the ball. So I'm gonna ask somebody, a game. Do they want to take the ball and talk about it, or do they want to defer and go to a different game? So Marvin, my friend, do you want to defer or do you want to take the ball for the Vikings and Packers?
I'll defer.
Okay. All right. Next on the
Pretty
list.
much like what their defense did this past Sunday. Their defense deferred.
Next on the list is the Chiefs and the Jets. Do you want to take the ball or do you want to defer? Marvin.
I'm going to defer. I'm going to defer on the hapless Jets. No conversation needed.
No
conversation.
Chiefs walked in, took care of their business, walked out, and took care of their business. That's it.
I got a real good one for you, Marvin. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Defer or take the ball on this one? The Bills and the Patriots.
I will take the ball on this one.
All right. Go ahead, my friend. The mic is yours.
I'll take the ball on this one. I mean, basically what we're looking at here is a lack of depth on the offensive and defensive side of the ball for the Patriots. They're not the team that they were last year. Clearly, Especially what Bill Belichick had clearly said yesterday. They sold out and won 3 Super Bowls and ended up paying Cam a million because they had no choice. They have no depth on this team. When you look at their receiving core, it's pretty much like all 4 of us on this panel could play offense for the Patriots right now. They just have nobody. Cam Newton has nobody to throw the ball to. He has a lack of options. They have a lack of a running game. The defense really checked out because of COVID and injuries that's piled up on that side of the ball. So New England is at a standstill. And this game, they had an opportunity to win. They were close. They kept it close. What was more shocking than what hasn't been shocking to me is how bad the Bills' defense has been over the past few weeks. They put the offense in a precarious situation for Josh Allen to have the ball in his hands more because the defense isn't doing his job. So they let the Patriots in this game. It was really close. And that last second turnover by Cam Newton was just devastating. I mean, last week, he just came off 3 interceptions. It's not looking good for Cam Newton and the Patriots going forward. I think you might see a quarterback change within the next few weeks, but who knows? The Patriots now sit at 2-5. This game was theirs to win, but they let them off the hook in the red zone, and the Patriots coughed up another one. So I think that the Patriots are now officially on a downward spiral. That was their game to kind of get back into some kind of fight and contention in the division, but I just don't see it happening. And the Bills, on that note, they have to play more consistent football. I mean, they got the win, but granted, if you're winning close games like this against the Patriots with lack of offensive weapons, what are the Bills going to do when they get into the postseason? So it's something that the Bills have to figure out. They definitely have to figure out those defensive woes. They definitely got some injuries on that side of the ball, but this game was the Bills earned it. What can I say?
Yes, sir. And I agree with you 100%. The Bills have to be a little bit more consistent, but right now they're consistently winning. They're owning that division as of right now, the AFC East, with 6 wins, 2 losses. They're 2 games ahead of Miami. They're 4 games ahead of New England, and they have the win. And the New York Jets, well, they're still being looked for. There's a search party on the Jets, and we still haven't found them yet. So, Justo, are you going to defer or take the ball for the Titans-Bengals game?
I'm going to defer that one because I feel like there's somebody who likes the orange and black in this room that can comment on that.
That's okay. So then I'll just go ahead and just do this then. Do you defer or take the ball for the Steelers-Ravens game?
Give me that ball, man.
All right. You take
that ball. I'm wearing a certain jersey today. I'm taking the whole camera down with me. Because there's a time with the Pittsburgh Steelers that I miss when there was a sure thing. But you said the Pittsburgh Steelers went in and handled their business on Sunday. That was your quote from the beginning of this segment. No, they didn't, man. I'm not convinced. I'm still not convinced. The Pittsburgh Steelers came out with a win, but as Richie referred to, we were trying to record the H2G podcast, and I was over here having a heart attack watching them barely hang on to a 3-point lead all the way down to the wire. There was a lot of mistakes in this game. Ben Roethlisberger played by himself. I think that's a problem that we're still having that I've already mentioned on this show. Why can't we figure out a method to get that man some protection? He is not a 300-pound heavy bag that can just keep getting beat on and make successful long throws downfield. Smith-Schuster, we talked about underperforming. I think he looked more like a short-range halfback in this game than he did a receiver. He looked more like Jerome Bettis than he did a receiver. You know, we've compared him to, we had him in that conversation with the AB game and, you know, replacing a receiver with another receiver that can do the long range thing. And he can, and he's proven that. But in this game, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that they're the best in the league. With the NFC, the NFC East looking the way it is, I think this could be one of the most competitive divisions in the league right now. We can't forget about Cleveland. And I just wanted to see a much better performance from Pittsburgh overall. I think the defense has been making a name for themselves this year and reclaiming that Iron Curtain status. I think they had a lot of holes downfield. I think they left a lot of open spots. And Lamar Jackson, if he didn't have a guy open, he had no problem gaining an extra 10 or 11, and that adds up as we've seen over time. And that was the threat all the way down to the end. This man is still making a play out of nothing and making 12 yards happen. And everybody's just standing around. And I constantly see that pocket close in on Ben. I constantly see him forcing the ball like we've talked in the past. And I constantly see mistakes. If that keeps up, we're not going to be able to handle a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm just saying.
Yep, valid points. I agree with you on that. You know, the Steelers definitely didn't look like themselves. But then again, I said it last week, a win is a win. And the Ravens, that was their game to lose more than the Steelers actually won that game. And I think the Ravens know that. But hey, it's something for the Steelers to build off of. And we'll actually have a little bit more about Steeler talk with Richie later on. He has a very great point. But Richie, real quick, we're going to do defer or take the ball. I'm going to give you the Raiders or the Browns.
Raiders and the Browns.
You want to take the ball or defer?
I'll take the ball. Why not? So here's what I want to talk about, particularly about this game, is it's not about, Cleveland lost another game and they're 5-3. What I would like to point out to the league is the Raiders at 4-3. Now that sounds terrible, right? 4-3. But one of the things about the Raiders is they've had the toughest schedule by far. And as a matter of fact, they were in the remaining schedule's ranking of difficulty is 28th. So considering they had the hardest schedule up till now, and they're 4-3 and have survived, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're capable of, man. They let's not forget, man, that they actually took Kansas City and gave them one of these. So who knows? I'm looking forward to it. As far as Cleveland goes, I'm a little disappointed. I really expected them to have a better performance, but I mean, it's kind of tough right now. You know, like when Kareem Hunt's your guy, you know, he's not, how do I want to say this? He's not the superstar that they had with Chubb, right? So you're losing your identity. You've lost your arguable best wide receiver, although I personally don't think Odell is the best wide receiver on that team. I think Jarvis Landry is, for that team specifically. Emphasis on that. You lost your best wide receiver. You lost your star running back. You were the number one offense in rushing yards in the league at that point. I understand why Cleveland kind of lost that game. Because again, my point is I don't think people are going to look at it as Cleveland failing. But I think it's just people don't really recognize the Vegas Raiders. And don't get me wrong, this wasn't a pretty game. This wasn't a fun game to watch at all. It was actually pretty much a snooze fest. Let's be honest, folks. This wasn't even what I would consider, at least like when you have like a Steelers-Ravens game, which actually ended up being a high prolific scoring game. It wasn't even like a defensive struggle. It was just a bad, boring game. Carr threw for 100 yards. It was just not impressive. I mean, Jacobs did good. I think he averaged like 4.8, something like almost 5 yards per carry. He killed, cowbell, ran out the clock. But I am very curious to see if the Raiders are fraudulent or if they are potentially for real. Because again, when you had the hardest schedule and you came out 4-3, it's not too bad. It's not too bad at all. And again, Cleveland's not a bad team. Now, sure, this isn't fully, loaded Cleveland, but Let's see what I am very curious to see the back half of the season and see where the Raiders end up. Now, obviously, they'll be vying for a wild card spot because let's be honest, I don't see them getting past Kansas City. But that's where things could get interesting because they just played another potential AFC wildcard spot and front runner in Cleveland with Baltimore, etc. So I think this is a possible scenario where you see a play-in, and hopefully we'll get a better result next time. I think it wasn't exactly what we as football fans want to see. Nobody wants to see a snooze fest. That was basically the running back did his job and nobody else did anything. And that's what this game was. But that's no fault to the Raiders. They got to win where they needed, and they did it on the road. So kudos to the Raiders.
I had a question on a quick tip that you just spurred before I know we're on the schedule here, but do you know when they're playing again? And what do you guys think about some of these schedule changes? I saw that the Steelers-Ravens next matchup is Thanksgiving. They're like 2 weeks out from another huge physical rivalry. You guys have any thoughts on these COVID changes on the schedule?
I mean, it's kind of a necessity, I suppose. You know, it's really hard to have conversations about this, just in the sense that you never know what's going to happen. People, teams are getting infected, and it is what it is. I think a lot of teams are playing next week. All I can say is, you know what, my Bengals won and they're on a bye, so I don't even care. I'm going to watch every single game laser focused on the 8th, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's my sentiments exactly. I mean, it pretty much is what it is. And, I'll tell you, last week, a lot of teams surprised me on some of the games they won, and some teams surprised me on some of the games that they lost. But the Jets did what I pretty much thought would happen against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Dennis Green said it best. The Jets are who we thought they were. So I'm gonna just leave it with that. Go ahead, Richie. What are you gonna say?
Oh, I mean, they definitely left them on the hook in this case because they 0-8, man. I don't think they're gonna win. I think they're going 0-16. I don't see it coming.
I mean, they bailed out. They traded Le'Veon. They traded a linebacker to the Steelers. I mean, they're just dumping stuff right now. So I mean, There's a lot of things that are going on with the Jets. They're going for that first round pick. So hey, they probably
makes it even more hilarious, Tony. I'm sorry, is that the Jets are taking for a guy that says he wants to stay in college if they select him.
All right.
So they've already lost the draft already. The guy, the number one pick, is already said, I'll stay in school if they want me.
If they want me, right? Isn't that hilarious to me? What Marvin is saying? Then the other thing is like, okay, sure, there are no fans, so you don't have to worry about people booing because you're like intentionally tanking. But then what do? You can't take the kid you want. Where this doesn't make sense.
And think about this. They're four wins away, the Jets. They're 4 wins away from leading if they were in the NFC East. They're 4 wins away. Damn division. Every week, I'm sorry, fam, but every single week, I'm bringing this shit up.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting that we have to waste our time on this panel, even for 5 minutes, talking about the Jets. Because I think maybe this is a discussion, Richie, I don't know, for another day. But why in the hell does Adam Gase still have a job?
That's what I don't understand.
Why does he still have a job? Justin, why does he have a job? Richie, Tony, why does this man still have a job? If this was anyone else, had this been a black coach, y'all, okay, let's really get to that. And they were this and that, would he have kept his job?
We're just to get into this, Marv, I'm gonna go on a different person. You know who really needs to be fired more than him? Matt Patricia, Lions head coach. How the hell does he have a job? How that Jim Caldwell was 7-9. All right, great coach, black man. Kind of annoying that at 7-9 he loses his job. They were close to getting it. They were pieces away. And then Matt Patricia does his like white man New England speech, which all these coaches from New England that come out from the Belichick system always suck. Well, he's the worst one. I've seen some bad ones. I've seen Charlie Weiss. I've seen what's that goofball's name that went to Denver and drafted Tim Tebow. I don't even care. Josh McDaniels. Who gives a shit? Doesn't matter. He's not relevant. Matt Patricia is the worst. They went from 7-9 to like they can't win They can't win I almost cursed. They can't win a game. They can't do anything. And this guy is acting like he is the juggernaut. Like he's acting like he's the Marvin Lewis of the New England's defense, as if he cultivated this insanely great defense. Matt Patricia had nothing to do with that defense. Bill Belichick did. It is obvious because when you look at the Lions, they can't stop nobody. They can't stop a cold. They can't stop COVID. They can't stop nothing. Are you kidding?
You said it best. Marvin Lewis would be better suited to coach that team.
I was shocked honestly, not just by Marv, but the Cowboys only went with 2 people, and they obviously just gave Marv the Rooney Rule bullshit just so they could hire that idiot from Green Bay. I don't even want to talk about it. He doesn't even deserve an opportunity to coach the league, yo. You know what? Like, there are some people, you know, we can have this debate about Belichick versus Brady. We both know on some level they're both pretty good, but let's not kid ourselves on who was the reason Green Bay was successful, because it certainly was one Aaron Rodgers. And based on the division Tony's talking about, it's clear as day, because the Dallas Cowboys suck. They're terrible. They're all terrible. The NFC East is disgusting. I can't believe they are still getting primetime games. I am surprised and shocked and appalled that week in and week out, I have to watch either the Washington football team, the fucking Eagles, the Cowboys, or tonight, the Giants playing in primetime football when there are combined like 7 wins or something between 4 teams. It's disgusting. They have the same amount of wins as the Steelers. Maybe they have one more, excuse me. It may be one more total between 4 teams. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And it's like, I don't even understand, because they're not like the biggest markets in the United States. It'd be different if like if every single one of these markets was just so massive that we had to like bow down and find it's Chicago and it's New York City, but they are not. LA has like what, 40 million people? You know what I mean? Like, and all we do is hear the Cowboys and the Eagles. Man, I am so sick of this shit. I'll tell you what, I cannot wait to see whatever team, it looks like it's the Eagles, that goes into the playoffs, and I can't wait to watch they'll play like the Seahawks and lose like 50-7. It's gonna be the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in my life, for sure.
What's even more funny is that the team with a losing record that wins this division will have a home playoff game.
A home playoff game.
Playoff game, yeah. That's the thing I was going to say. There's going to be teams that have a better record than the team that wins this division that won't even make the playoffs. Think about that. Think about that. They'll have a better record and they won't even be able to play in the playoffs because, hey, that's some shitty stuff right there. Now, it might be a different story if Dak wasn't hurt. We can go down that road, but hey, it is what it is. And maybe historically these teams have been around for a while and maybe that's why they get all this recognition. Who knows what it is? I really can't say. But, Jerry Jones has his head so far up people's ass that he just gets all the stuff that he wants when he wants it. And that's fine. That's just Jerry Jones and that's how he does business. And that's cool. And if Jerry disagrees with what I say, because little old me, he's not going to worry about what I say. But if he wants to say something, you're welcome to come join the show on The Wire and dispute or fight your own battles or however it may be said. But anyway, moving on. Richie, you brought up a great point, and we kind of got into that a little bit when we were talking about the head coaches, but a milestone had happened for Mike Tomlin, and I'd like for you to just indulge us with a little bit of what that is.
Yeah, so there's 2 incredible milestones that I wanted to point out to, and then honestly, I want to defer to Tony and Justin as they are Steelers fans. This is not a Steelers episode. We already did that last week, but Mike Tomlin has 140 regular season wins. So he has surpassed Tony Dungy for most wins by an African-American head coach in NFL history already. And when I was talking to the boys before the podcast was, growing up and people our age, Tony Dungy was like the black coach. He was the guy that we got to see. We watched him win a Super Bowl, and then he paved the way for guys like Romeo Crennel and Marvin Lewis and others to have opportunities, in Jim Caldwell's. And it was incredible for me. So it's just one of those things that, even though I watch football, and maybe it's because I'm such a Steelers hater, that I wasn't really, consciously paying attention to this. So to see that, it was just, that's awesome, man. And Mike Tomlin is, the Steelers took him at a very young age, and what an incredible leader of men. Let's be honest. He's always very much the Steelers way. And like, when you think of a head coach and you hear like what I loved, what he basically said, similar to what Justin said, and not verbatim, but it was basically like, we fucking suck today, is what he said when everyone was all like asking him questions. It's like, we played like crap and we didn't deserve to win that game and we shouldn't have won that game. I really like his accountability. I've always thought that way about him. I think he's incredible. And another statistic is he's had 14 seasons and he has yet to have a losing season. So he's had, even seasons and he's had winning seasons, but he has never had a losing season so far. So it just goes to show you, though, in my opinion, and I'm going to let these two speak, and please, Marvin, feel free as well, that it doesn't matter how successful you are as a black coach, because look at like how incredible this man has done in this field. And I'm not hearing anything of this. Let's be honest, I'm not hearing much about this. And to have the success he's had and to not get the renown and the respect that some of his contemporaries would have is baffling to me. Again, I watch football. I watch a lot of sports. I think a lot of you will kind of tend to notice that I'm very statistics driven and I pay attention to things. And I'm shocked that I didn't know this already, but it's shocking to me that this information and that this wasn't like something people were paying attention to. This wasn't like an ESPN tracker type thing or whatever you want to call it. Bizarre. I mean, this is a historic moment. That win was a historic moment in that man's career and honestly in the NFL's history. And I'm shocked. He's at the age, they said he's 1 year younger than when Bill Belichick and Tom Brady won their first Super Bowl. So this man is staying in the NFL as long as he would like to. And I hope it's for Pittsburgh, as much as I'm not a fan of them. This man never deserves to lose his job. He should be there until he feels like retiring. I mean, good grief, 14 seasons without losing at all. Hasn't lost a single season in an extremely competitive division. Because again, like right now, it's just Baltimore and Pittsburgh and, Cleveland to share. But, over the last 6 years, it hasn't been that way. But, when Tomlin first started, the Bengals were actually a pretty good team. Like every year, he's had to deal with contenders year in and year out, Super Bowl contending type teams. And for him to not have a losing season once, for him to deal with the drama that he has to deal with, for him to watch his teams constantly just flip players. They're like, oh, this Mike Wallace, see you later, man. I don't care if you're the third best wide receiver. We'll just get this guy and we'll groom him and we'll make it happen. And for him to have years where he just didn't have a defense and Ben was carrying them and him working around that and coaching around that strategy to where they are now, and they're the best team in the league statistically. It's incredible. And honestly, that's all I really wanted to say. We have two Steeler fans, and I would like for them to be able to speak more to it because, again, they clearly understand Mike Tomlin more than a casual fan would.
Yeah, you can get this one first if you want, and then I can take it or.
Okay. Well, I think the big word here is consistency. I think that there was a huge mantle with Bill Cowher. Say what you will about the man and the way he coached the Steelers, but he was consistent. They were always a threat. They were always a powerhouse. They had issues that needed resolved every single year. They had that, but he was able to fight through that. I think that mantle getting tossed on the young man and not ever falling for, like you said, 14 seasons. He's not lost one of those seasons. We've had some really bad seasons. We're not having, for being best in the league statistically right now, we're not having the best season right now. And he's been consistent in growth and replacing, like you said, and making sure that the key elements of Pittsburgh football are present on all sides of the ball with everybody that comes in and out. The zero tolerance, that man, I used to say it about Cowher, and then I think I just said this on Sunday. He's got some intense faces. That's an important thing in Steeler football, I think, after all those years with Cowher. But meaning so that he really truly cares and knows when the team itself is underperforming to the standard that they've set in the practices and going along with his coaching scheme. I think he's an excellent coach. I think he should absolutely retire at Pittsburgh, but that's up to him. I don't think that Pittsburgh's ever gonna have that thought. I think the fact that he is now tied with Tony Dungy, and that it is so much tougher for African American coaches to succeed, I think that is an accolade. But I think the way that we can make change is just by letting the scorecard, let the statistics speak for themselves. How can you not want me around? Look what I'm doing for your organization. You can see green, right? I know you're having problems seeing color right now, but you can see green, right? That's what I respect about Mike Tomlin, because I've never heard him talk about that. And that's important to me, because that means when those things that inevitably do happen, we've talked extensively about how hard it is to be a black man in society, in general, let alone a coach in the NFL running an entire organization in the public eye 24/7. But he's not that type of guy to have to. He's like, my results will speak for themselves. I will be the person I want to be in this world and be successful at it. And that's what I respect about him as a man and as a coach. Again, the statistics speak for themselves. They do.
So yeah, I'm gonna hit a couple things and then we're gonna move on. When I think of successful black coaches, obviously from the top down, it would be Tony Dungy. You said black head coach in the National Football League, it's Tony Dungy. It's Mike Tomlin. It's Dennis Green. It's Art Shell. It's Fritz Pollard. It's Lovie Smith. It's Marvin Lewis. And so there's a lot of them. And it doesn't get recognized a lot. And, it's something that they're working on, that the NFL is working on, hence the Rooney Rule. But for the Steelers, I'll tell you like this. I'm part of a lot of fan chats on Facebook and groups. And the Steeler fans are so hard on Mike Tomlin because Mike Tomlin has the best winning percentage out of all the coaches that have coached the Steelers regular season. However, playoffs, he is the worst head coach with percentage wins. Bill Cowher was better and Chuck Knowles was better. So that's what the knock is when it comes to Mike Tomlin. It's not so much having the best regular season, it's about championships. So see, Steeler fans, most of them, it's not about, what you can do for 16 games. It's about what you can do for the final couple games in the playoffs and bring the Lombardi Trophy home. That's what it's always been about. You can say that's what it's always about for every team, but hey, some teams don't even get to the dance. Some teams have never been to the dance, so they don't even know what that's like. Another thing for me is you remember how we were talking about tiers a couple weeks ago with the quarterbacks? This is sick to think about. Mike Tomlin, in a lot of people's eyes, and I won't say everybody's, but in a lot of people's eyes, is a second tier coach. The question is, why is he considered a second tier coach? Bill Belichick is always above Mike Tomlin, but who else is above Mike Tomlin? Think about it. What other coach in the National Football League right now would you rate above Mike Tomlin? Nobody. So how can you even be a second tier coach if you're the second best coach? Unless the first tier is only one person. That's the only argument that you can give me. I die hard believe that Mike Tomlin is a great coach, and I'll ride and die with him. Bad boys for life. That's just who I am as a person. But a lot of these Steeler fans that are on these groups with me, they don't see it like that. And that's okay. That's okay. Only time will tell. He's so young, and I know that he was defensive minded. And when he came here, they're like, oh, he was a defensive back coach. He's going to do some things defensively for the Steelers. And the Steelers get shredded year in and year out by defense. Another great point that people always bring up that I have to fight, and then I'll concede, is he won Super Bowls with Bill Cowher players. He ain't won no Super Bowl with his players. He's won Super Bowls with Bill Cowher's players. So that's another thing that I have to fight and be like, listen, it's in due time, things are gonna happen. They say we don't do due time, we do right now. What have you done for me lately? No best season record is what you've done for me lately. It's about a Super Bowl championship. And that's my time.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Marvin go, but I have to comment. Some of those fans and those groups, man, they just need to sit down. Look at the leagues that these coaches were playing in, for the playoffs. By the time we get to the playoffs against some of these NFC stacked divisions, we've been underdeveloped. We've been playing lesser teams all season long. It's way deeper than that. I hate that too, man. I really do. And honestly, I think that's just a ignorant mindset. I'm going to send it over to Marvin.
No, I appreciate what you guys had to say about Mike Tomlin. All of you in this panel. Congrats to Mike Tomlin again for winning that award. But it's just, I agree with you, Tony. There's no explanation behind why Mike Tomlin doesn't get the credit he deserves. I grew up watching Tony Dungy, and I never thought that I would see another coach after that kind of implement that same kind of success, but I was wrong. Here you have Mike Tomlin, who has maintained that level of success for so long. I mean, they could throw out the worst playoff percentage record all they want to, but the man took his team to the postseason. He got them there. And in the Super Bowl appearances that they were in, it wasn't blowouts. They were on the verge of winning. That second Super Bowl that they played against the Packers, they were on the verge of winning. So it's to me, Tony, it reminds me of what LeBron James said recently, and I agree with it. And African-American coaches and African-American athletes are still in a constant battle and constantly remind us that when you get to a level of success, especially the level Mike Tomlin's in now, they're always going to find a way to downplay and minimize what you've done. And that's exactly what I feel has been unfair to Mike Tomlin. You put him on, if he left the Steelers right now, his phone would be blowing up because every team would want a guy that is a leader of men, which is exactly what Mike Tomlin is. That's what he's exemplified as a head coach of the Steelers in a competitive division such as the AFC North. I mean, that game this past week, you can say the Steelers, they gutted that out, but look at Mike Tomlin on the sidelines. He outcoached John Harbaugh, outcoached him in the second half. And that's exactly what Mike Tomlin does. He's just a veteran coach. He's a young coach that would still, if he wasn't with the Steelers today, his future would be very bright. But like I agree with you, Richie, Justin, earlier, they got to do everything they can to keep him, as a head coach for the Steelers, because there's almost as if there's no one else. Look at the personnel that he's had to deal with in the past few years. Look at what this man's had to deal with. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, distraction after distraction, and this man has kept his team together. And that's what he did. And Justin, you hit the nail on the head earlier when it didn't matter whether he thought he had the best receiver in the game, a diva receiver in Antonio Brown. He's like, that's fine. I'll flip you and I'll go get 3 other guys that can do what you do, but better, because they're not about their stats. And Mike Tomlin is a team first guy. And if you ask me, y'all, it would not surprise me if Mike Tomlin, getting this award this year, led his team to a Super Bowl and won it. That would just cap everything off. And hats off to Mike Tomlin. He should get more of his due, and he should get more respect on that chat, Tony, that you've been reading, because it's just those fans, they got to be more grateful. Be more grateful of what this man has done for your team.
Yeah, I agree. Just a side note, a quick example, Tony, I'm glad you mentioned that whole Pittsburgh, because again, I don't know that atmosphere. As a fan of the team, you do. Only thing I would say is that the man was 34 years old when he was hired. This is what Pittsburgh does. They hire 30-year-old coaches. He's 48. And like I said, he can coach for a long time. He was 36 when he won the Super Bowl. Like, I'm 35. He was 36 years old when he won the Super Bowl, man. And to be able to do that at that age, and to balance out, look, we talked about leader of men, you know, he's basically the same age as these people, and he was still able to like get the respect and garner the respect. But to the Pittsburgh Steelers fans you're referring to, what I would say is this: with the cowards guys, you know, there's a coach, his name is John Gruden. A lot of people love John Gruden, right? Big into John Gruden. I mean, look at the Raiders. They paid a lot of money to get John Gruden to come back and coach. And there's this myth that he's this incredible coach. And I remember him winning a Super Bowl. And I remember there was a really good coach by the name of Tony Dungy.
Yes, sir.
Made this insanely good defense for a team called the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who happen to have Tom Brady at the moment. And I remember they lost in the championship round, and Tony was fired, and they traded for John Gruden. They gave up picks to get it. John won the championship. And what the narrative was Tony Dungy isn't a winner, and John Gruden is. And to that, I would definitely say is the difference between what I would consider where Tomlin is and where Chucky / John Gruden is both of them inherited teams to be successful. But look what happened to Tampa Bay with John Gruden, and then look where Tomlin's been at. So I don't think that's a fair assessment. Also in football, superstars like the Steelers have longevity. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger's still playing, right? So if they win now, is that still a coward guy tech? I mean, how long do you go into those types of things? And again, like you can argue, like I'm with Marvin on the Green Bay thing. First of all, competitive game. Second, Green Bay had a better roster. So what? It's his fault Green Bay had a better roster? Like, let's be honest here. I'm not saying Ben Roethlisberger a bad quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback, period. Then those wide receivers were better than the Steelers quarter. So what? Is his fault that he had a worse team when he's not picking the players? He's not necessarily the general manager. He's not the owner. How's that his fault? This man does, and this is the same thing. This is the reason why Marvin Lewis was able to stay in Cincinnati so long. When you keep a team successful, or like what the ownership considers successful, you will have a job in this and career. But to me, the fact he's never lost a season, he's at least gone 8-8, is incredible. That's 14 seasons of not mediocrity, of success. Mediocrity is when you're at 6-10. You're at 7, and you know that's mediocrity. When you have a losing record, you're mediocre. 8-8 in the NFL is never mediocre because there's injuries and there's so many circumstances to it. And I'm shocked to hear that, but I appreciate you putting that out there for people because again, that's like a very specific niche. So to hear that there's people who find this coach not as successful as like Cowher's winning percent, because to me that's absurd. I would take Tomlin over Cowher, and there's so many years those Steelers sucked when I was watching them when Cowher was the coach, and he had Jerome Bettis, and they still sucked. I mean, come on, man.
Hey, that's all I got for you right there. I was going to ask you about Marvin Lewis, but you brought it up. But are you surprised? Is anybody surprised that Marvin Lewis hasn't found a job yet?
This is a tricky answer. Here's what I'll say as somebody who intimately understands this coach. I think Marvin Lewis is an incredible GM. I think that's where he belongs. He is incredible at drafting players and identifying talent, but he sorely lacked what I think Mike Tomlin had, which was that command and leadership. One of the things he was always afraid to do, and he said it in interviews multiple times, is he did not want to play rookies because he did not want the leaders of the team to feel like they're getting ousted so soon, which is not what a leader does, right? A leader focuses on the success of the team, and if the rookie's the best player, the rookie plays. So in that regard, I've always had issues with Marvin Lewis. I think Marvin Lewis is a great general manager. I think he's an incredible defensive-minded coach, but I think that's why you're sorely not going to see him as a head coach currently. Because in this avenue of football, a defensive-minded coach isn't what people are looking for because the rules have changed. And I mean, you look at you got Kansas City, you got Seattle, you have these teams averaging over 30 points a game. And Marvin Lewis is not the coach that can coach that team. So to me, I think he deserves, by his resume alone, that man deserves a head coaching career right now on some team. Why is he not on the Jets? Like, why is he not on the line? There are so many teams. He just from his resume alone, he should have that opportunity. But in my opinion, I think he's an incredible general manager, and that's where he belongs. The Bengals always had great rosters. If you look at the roster on paper, they're always good, but they never performed well, and that's on the coach. So I think he deserves an opportunity. I am shocked he only got one look. I believe he will get a chance. I believe next year, after this season's over, that's when he'll have a real chance, because he only had one team to really go to at that point. It was Dallas, and as we all know, there was a hogwash. It wasn't even a real chance or opportunity. But I would be very sad if that poor man ended up having to take the Jets job and had a bad showing, and then he coached the Bengals and he coached the Jets, and they didn't go well. I am a little surprised, but I do believe he will have another opportunity very shortly.
I think the Cowboys needed him. I think that goes back to the whole Billy Bean thing. If anybody is a Billy Bean in this situation and can figure out what needs to happen on the Dallas roster, it might be Marvin Lewis. I mean, because you said he is, as far as the head coach goes, more fitting for the GM position. So I think it's a good blend for a team like Dallas right now that has, for all intents and purposes, some big ticket names there. You know, it's that same story.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and he dealt with an owner who, like Jerry, had to have all control. Mike Brown does all the draft picks. No one gets to do the draft picks. And only in the last 3 years did Marvin he put it in his contract that he got to draft the player. So I do agree with you in that sense. I never even thought of it from that perspective. That's a great point. He's one of the few people that it was equipped to handle Jerry Jones on that level, actually.
Yeah, Tony, I'm not surprised. Y'all, I'm not surprised that he's not got a head coaching position in the NFL yet. I mean, because when you looked at Marvin Lewis's career with the Bengals, he lacked postseason success. I mean, 16 years as the Bengals head coach, 7 playoff appearances, no playoff victories, y'all. You can't be a head coach in this league with no postseason wins. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. No owner, no GM is going to bring in a guy that just does not have postseason success. So, I mean, it's not to say that Marvin Lewis is not a good coach. It's just those years with the Bengals, if you go and look at some of those postseason games where they should have beat the Steelers, and you look at games where, like you said, Richie, earlier, he just didn't have command of the team. And he just didn't have command of the defense. You saw Vontaze Burfict act out multiple times during the Steelers games. You've seen some of his defensive players, his top guys, cost him games in the postseason because he just did not have command over the locker room. And that was always a worry, always been my worry for Marvin Lewis, is that he just does not have that voice. He doesn't galvanize his team enough to whereas his team can go out and and consistently win week in and week out. So, y'all, I think that he would be best fit as a defensive coach, because when he was with the Baltimore Ravens, he proved that under I forget the coach's name, but he proved that Brian Bell. He proved that he was a great defensive coach there. And when he went to the Bengals, some of that success translated there on that defensive side of the ball. So I think that what we have here, I think everyone can agree, Mike Nolan with the Dallas Cowboys needs to be fired immediately. And Jerry Jones should do what Tony said earlier, pull his head out of his ass and start interviewing candidates for that DC position. And I think that they could start with Marvin Lewis, because when you look at the teams around the league, I mean, I wouldn't want Marvin Lewis to go to the Jets, y'all. I mean, come on. I don't want him to go there. It's a wasteland. But I think that he'd be a best fit with the Dallas Cowboys to replace a Mike Nolan, because you got a DeMarcus Lawrence down there. You got Van Der Esch. You've got defensive pieces, even though, I mean, the Cowboys have been getting served hot L's this whole season. That's just been attested to the defense. So I think that if you can, Marvin Lewis would be a great fit for that job. Not so much as a GM, because like I said, 16 years, seven postseason appearances, no playoff win. I don't want to miss my GM.
Marvin, I don't ever butt heads with you, man, but there's 13 coaches right now in the NFL that don't have any playoff wins, including your boy Matt Patricia in Detroit, including Gase over in New York. Marvin Lewis is a better coach. I think he absolutely deserves a job over some of these knuckleheads in these crap divisions in this poor excuse for football when we're seeing better games played on Saturday in Division 2.
But Justin, I know what I'm going to get out of Marvin Lewis. If I sign him to a contract, I know what kind of lack thereof, postseason success my team might have if I take a chance.
You don't want to go 12-4 and then not win a playoff game ever? You don't want that?
Yeah. What was the point? What was the point of getting to the postseason?
The New York Jets are 0-8 right now. They would kill for. They got Jim Mora down there talking about playoffs. We just want to win a game.
Marvin sounds like those Steeler fans that I was talking about. He don't want to go 12-4. He wants to win some playoff games. He wants to win Super Bowl.
Win in the postseason is where it counts.
Absolutely.
You can, ask the New England Patriots that were undefeated one season and then lost in the Super Bowl. History tells us this. I mean, regular season wins are great. I mean, they show us what teams are capable of before they get there. But when you know what you're getting with an head coach, with his track record of lack of postseason success, you know what you're getting, Justin. You know what you're going to bring in. So those other guys that you listed off, yeah. But if I bring in Marvin Lewis, he's just in the same bucket as them.
No, because Marvin Lewis can turn a team like the New York Jets from an 0-8 team into at least a winning season, as Richie alluded to before. And then maybe we're talking about hasn't had a playoff win yet.
I gotta defend my man here. Mark's going a little hard on him. Let me say something here. Now, I've been a Bengals fan my whole life. All right. When Marvin Lewis came on that team, yes, he got Carson Palmer, and that was a big part of it. But they went from losing to winning the division 5 times, right? Within 8 years. They became winners instantly. Now, yes, I agree with you. He never won a playoff, but when you have a team that averaged 3.5 wins to shoot all the way up to 8.5 during his tenure, a 5-win swing, I think that's worth it. Even to galvanize a fan base. Now, because again, I agree with you in the context of we're talking about championships, and Tony's fan base is different because they've won. But when you look at the NFL and the 32 teams, mine included, many of them haven't ever won a championship. And to have a guy who, if you throw him on there and you're going to get, if you could say, hey, if my team got 5 more wins, where would I be at? And he could probably do that for most teams. I think he's worth getting a hire somewhere. I just think he didn't have a good fit, except for Dallas. And I don't want to talk about that. Our podcast has been going crazy, but he should have been the Dallas coach. Honestly, I'm disgusted by that. It's just like black guy gets turned over for the white guy. It's the same shit, different story. Like, let's be honest. But Marv, I agree with your passion. And again, the Bengals fan base didn't appreciate him, but I certainly did. Because I know what it's like when they sucked. And he at least, I'll give it this. He's not a leader of men. I firmly believe that. I believe he had teams that were so incredible that could have had opportunities. Carson tore his ACL the one time, but 2015 is a prime example of what you said, perfect. They went 12-4, and they basically gave the Steelers a win when they could. When they were the better team, but he couldn't control them, like you said, and that to me showed at that point. That's when he should have been fired, in my opinion. When yes, he was 12-4, but like that shows you what, like, the Marvin Lewis syndrome. it doesn't matter how good his team is, he finds a way to lose. Because he doesn't play to win, he plays not to lose.
Yeah.
As a Bengals fan, that would be my critique of him. But regardless, that man deserves an opportunity somewhere. He's an incredible coach.
Yeah. I mean, and Tony, it's not fair that you said I sound like the guys in the chat. That shouldn't be the narrative. All I'm saying is, Richie, Tony, just the narrative it changes after a while. Fans, like you just said it, Richie, the Bengals sucked for the longest until Marvin Lewis came in. And then they were winning, and that translated. They were over 500 for 5 years. But the expectation it exceeds expectations at that point. The fans want to see more. The fans are invested. This is like the Steelers. The fans are invested. They have expectations. They have they have a championship. It's championship or bust mentality for that franchise. And you just didn't see that. I just didn't see that with Cincinnati in the years that they were getting to the postseason. So, yeah, you're right, Richie. Yeah, he deserves it, but I just don't know if it's going to happen because you just can't trust a man with no postseason wins. I'm sorry, you just can't do it.
There's 13 organizations that disagree.
And you can't trust those guys either.
That's what happened to the fans. What Marv said is very true. Once they saw he proved his track record, then the expectations rose, and that's when he froze.
Yep. And then if you're a fan of the NFL, which a lot of people are, you know that a lot of teams, it takes time for it to build up. I mean, the Steelers sucked through the 80s. The Steelers barely got to where they needed to be in the 90s. They made the Super Bowl one time, but they ended up losing. So the Patriots were a really terrible team once upon a time. The Browns were a really terrible team once upon a time. They're trying to make a little comeback. So I mean,
they still might be terrible. The jury's still out on that, Tony.
It takes time for it to mature, for it to get to where it needs to be. It's that fine wine. It takes a little bit of time. Marvin Lewis should definitely not be missed out on. He definitely needs to get a job. But we talked about a lot of great things here on The Wire today. We appreciate you joining us. Next week, we're going to talk about MAA. Excuse me. I couldn't even get that out. I couldn't even get it out because I don't even know that much about it. And we're also going to talk about golf, which I do know about, and I know how to say it. It just rolled off my tongue. Golf. It was like I got a hole in one. Golf. Anyway, till the next time. Thank you for watching The Wire.